Hi, good
Hi.
afternoon. I'm
Hi.
Kaya.
Hi, Devin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So before we get started, with all the questions, I wanted to go ahead and state that all the information that you have submitted on the application process and anything that you say in this interview, as far as also being recorded, is allowed to be viewed by only the executive branch and will be kept confidential. I wanted to know if we had your verbal consent for a little.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Great. So, of course, good afternoon. We are pleased to have you here today to interview for the marketing manager position. We are pleased to have you here today out of all the applications that we have received for this position. And today's interview will be about 30 minutes. And we will go over what skills and qualifications you have. We are currently looking for an individual who excels in time management, business software, and is very organized. I wanted to go ahead and address the benefits that you will receive from this company if you are hired. I know that we had them stated in the application, but I just want to review them. So we have a very competitive salary based on prior experience and qualifications. The salary will vary between $80,000 and $110,000 per year. You have a potential for stock options after the first year of your employment. And there's a significant raise in advancement opportunities based on periodic evaluations. We also do periodic evaluations in the company. And there are many opportunities to pursue adjacent areas of interest within our business as you evolve professionally. We really love to hone in on your creative side and kind of anything you have to bring to the table. Some of the health benefits that we offer is health insurance, dental insurance, and a 401k. And we also have a visa sponsorship. So today's interview is the final interview, and if you are hired, we will contact you via email that you put in your application. And that's about all. So did you bring anything else for us to look at and review today?
No, I think you've got my resume, and you've probably done, any kind of reference checks and that sort of thing. So I think we're good.
Perfect.
I don't have anything to add, I guess.
So can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
I'm out working as a civilian now. I guess spent 22 years in the service as an officer, as an engineer by background, as you saw in the resume, and then now I've just done some project management and customer support for the government as well. And so just kind of looking to do really a little bit something different, broaden my horizons, I guess, which has me applying for this position.
That's perfect. I love that. So, are you willing to work long hours?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Perfect. So, our company does about 55 hours a week. It will be no more than that. It can be less than that. We have hybrid work, and that's usually why we ask that question. It's very demanding.
Okay. And so when you say 55 hours, is that the standard work week, right? Because, typically you're talking 40 hours is standard work week, and when you get beyond 40 hours, that's, some version of overtime. Of course, this is a salaried position. So, when you go beyond that 40 hours, how does this company basically account for that, right? 55 hours a week is about 11 hour day. And so, I've got a family, and that's a significant portion of what's important to me, to be balanced, to bring, my best self to the office every day.
Yes. So, as we have said, there will be, it is not completely, in office. It does have hybrid, so you will have days where you are at home doing remote work. But as far as going over the 40-hour work week, there are just different things that will demand. So there may be something that you have to go on site for one of the companies that we work for. Considering this is a marketing agency, we work with a ton of different companies, and you'll be over different people. So the 55 hours is just compensating for the fact that you may have to go to an event, or you may have to go to something like that where you will obviously you will not have to pay anything. We will have already covered that for you, considering you are the manager. But we do not have an overtime compensation because we do not want anyone else working any longer than what we already require. But we do have a bunch of benefits that come along with that, especially just a lot of the opportunities that you will get to have through this position. So do you consider yourself creative?
Yes, I do.
So do you have any examples of some of the work you've done that will prove your creativity?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, so as I know we were talking a bit earlier, you probably saw the resume there. One of the prior companies that I worked for, we developed curriculum, training curriculum, and that sort of thing. And so part of the reason that things were so effective in developing that curriculum was the nature of the team. And I think when you talk creativity, it's about the creativity of everybody on the team. And so, especially today, in this environment, especially with someone like myself that's a Gen Xer all the way down to the Gen Zs, millennials, and then just the diversity that you find in the workplace, and the differences in the way we communicate, via the television, social media, including things as brief as Twitter, Snapchat, or those kind of things. Having people that consume that information from different parts of those generations, right? So the Gen Zers, I've got a 22-year-old kid who's getting out of college as well, and how they view those things is very important. And having those aspects on the team are important. So kind of going back to the creativity piece there, was we're building curriculum. In many ways, it's kind of like marketing a product, if you will, in the sense that we're building curriculum training for these test teams that you want people that we wanted the curriculum to be a quick hitter. In other words, it was going to be 30 minutes, and it was going to be consumed by anybody from 18 years old up to 60 plus. So meaning we've got a lot of different folks, different learning styles, all of the above. So I've got a very diverse team. I've got Gen Xers like myself, Gen Z, millennial, married, single, male, female, all of those different backgrounds. Really, almost a sample size of the audience we expected to receive our curriculum. So anyway, again, you asked creativity in the example there, and so part of that is how you set the culture on your team, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to bring out that creativity, and so when I've got people on my team that are my kids' age, I want them to feel as if they can bring their idea genuine and feel like we are very much on the same level as they present that portion, because I want to know what you think. There are things from my view, from my soda straw, where I don't see that information, and so being able to make you feel comfortable encourages you to solve and solve the problem as you would in your own mind, how you view it. And then not only that, but be able to then encourage that conversation and discussion so we can bring together all viewpoints. And so as we come together in that collaboration, you walk out of there going, okay, this product is consumable, the training material is consumable by people as young as this, again, 18 to 60 plus. And so, what you don't want to happen, and this is where you foster that culture, which brings out the creativity, allows it to flow openly, by setting that environment where people feel comfortable to do that. And part of it is bringing in those people, but then part of it is how you conduct those things. So I guess creativity in the sense of, hey, was it this art kind of thing? No, but it was being open to alternative views, and appreciating them and considering them as you go through there, and then also setting the reciprocal of that as well, where I'm open to that as your manager, and then now I want you to feel it goes both ways, right? So as an older person, here's how I see what you've presented, and so as you kind of set that foundation in that culture within the team, you bring in those right components. It's much like the if some of these sports teams, right, like the Chicago Bulls, when they had all the right players in a team as opposed to a group of people, you're able to accomplish extraordinary things and leverage skills and abilities and capabilities that you can't individually or constrained by a specific rule set. Very parochial kind of, I guess is the word in that sense. And so, so to answer you, just give me an example of creativity. It's about setting the culture to enable that. And I think in marketing, that's something very, very, very important, because each company's product that you do is unique. And that company has an expectation of how they want to present themselves. And so being able to have a diverse team that is open to viewing that product from all aspects that the consumer would allows us to mesh with exactly what that company is all about, but then also then how to reach the larger audience of people that they're going to want to do that to increase that market share and those kinds of things.
Well, I really love your take on creativity, and I think that's just really great. Like the way that you're presenting your leadership, and that you take a lot of just everyone's opinion and you really validate that. So I really think that's a really good take on it, especially for this position.
Okay, thank you.
So I know that you said that you have had experience with business software. Do you just have some examples of some of the different softwares that you have worked with?
I mean, whether that be the Adobe Photoshop, basic Microsoft Office, applications, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams applications, SharePoint, all of those kind of things, even into some HTML, website coding, some of those and then of course having been a manager and supervisor for a long time and in different organizations, you've got a variety of different pay systems and personnel HR type systems as well. So what is it that you guys use here?
So we use different, obviously the basic Microsoft Office applications, and we also use our agency's promotions software. So when you go through it, it just kind of is able for you to meet with your team, schedule meetings. We also use Zoom for any Zoom calls you may need if you are not able to go in the office or one of your team is not. But we have our own software built in just for that, especially since there will be your clients. That's also the way that they will communicate with you, just as far as record protection, so forth. And the only other software that you will have to deal with as far as our iSolved, which is how, as far as remote work, how you will sign in for that. So it sounds like you really know your way around the computer, and you can kind of adjust to any software we throw at you. Sounds like you're well qualified for that.
Okay.
So another thing that we really like to hone in on is the attention to detail, especially since you'll be reviewing a lot of this work for just representing our agency and representing other people's companies. So, do you feel like you pay a lot of attention to detail in your work?
Yeah, I do actually, and I know, I guess probably to give you an example of that, right? So for, I guess maybe most extreme, if you will. So I spent about 8 years doing nuclear work for the Air Force, and so I mean, as you can imagine, it's a very detailed science, doing nuclear weapons, doing testing. Those kinds of things as well, and where the 0.01 kind of thing off is a very dangerous situation. And part of that, there's a lot of discipline coming to the letter of how you do the procedural things, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, type of stuff, where it goes in a certain order, goes a certain way, or things don't go right, and so very experienced there, which that's actually kind of one of the things I find sort of interesting as you go back and say, yeah, very detail oriented. Worried about whether there's a period on a bullet and the fonts are the right color code and all those kind of things, to then having that level of detail, OCD, if you will, coupled with what I described to you earlier of the creativity. And I think that's very much an advantage of being able to blend both of those together.
Yes.
Because, again, kind of going back to that piece, there's value in that team and being able to back each other up, right? So I build a product. And especially in the written word, as you're writing things, you can get carried away and leave prepositions out and all that. Yeah. And so that's where there's some things that you just pick up of setting aside, reading it over again, having someone else review it, And so for me, I've been a subject matter expert in places. I've got some background in instructional design, and so some of those things are things that I've done as a technical reviewer in the past. So there's been some training. Some conditioning, so to speak, in those things, and not only to review that, but additionally, kind of one of the advantages here then is to be able to have the background to go, okay, hey, here's the additional information, and then build your team to that requirement as well, or that expectation.
So it really sounds like, not only do you have extreme experience in that with a great matter attached to it, but it would also seem that you are very organized. So you would say you are. So another thing is we do have deadlines that are very strict, and in marketing they're very important, especially just the fact that the company has deadlines, and that's why they pay us. And so I would like you to provide an example of how you manage your time efficiently.
Yeah, so I mean, right, two pieces here. There's been program manager piece, but there's a piece where you've got to do your own stuff. You have leadership that you're responsible to as well. And so for me, a lot of it's very much a task list type of circumstance. You're always working, right? You're always focused on what the closest sharp to the boat is, so to speak, in the sense that being able to triage. Hey, I've got this due on Friday, I've got this due on Thursday, which is the more difficult task, which is going to take some time to do that. So, I will tell you, coming out of service and then other government work, you didn't have, the deadline was a deadline. If you didn't meet it, the type of organizations that you existed, it was kind of beat into your head. You were getting counseled, you were getting disciplinary action if you weren't meeting those deadlines. So, to give you an example, I mean, that's just kind of how you do business. Not only from the culture of those prior organizations, but frankly, at the end of the day, you want to make your customer happy. And if you can get it to them and exceeding their expectations early, or on time or early, that's how you exceed their expectations. There's going to be times where there's glitches or there's situations that happen, and that's part of having an open communication with your customer as well. But I mean, fundamentally, it's a respect for your customer, and internally to the company, it's about respecting the company and accomplishing those things. So, I mean, I could, if you wanted an example, I could give you 22 years and
well, I definitely feel like you've given a lot of
because those are very much just character traits about professionalism and how I conduct myself. So, honestly. That's just how I do business, and if you were to call the references and talk to them, that's the same thing. I'm confident they would share with you as well. In that is that's a very important thing, and again, it's just fundamental professionalism and courtesy, and really going out of your way for your customer, because your customer is what makes the company, right?
Oh yes.
And so you want to continue to exceed their expectations.
Well, yes. I mean, sounds like you really know what a deadline is. So. That is very important, obviously, and I'm glad you understand the, gravity behind that. But also, so as far as this work is very demanding, it can also be very stressful, and you can be under a lot of pressure. I would love to ask a time, but I feel like with all of your answers, I definitely have a time, especially when you're talking about paying attention to detail. In the nuclear situation, that is stressful, and you were probably under a lot of pressure in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of again leaning back to the bulk of my time there in service and some deployments, being in combat zones and things like that. I mean, I can kind of smile when I say, I mean, no one's gonna die. We're not gonna lose resources, right?
Well, yes.
And so, at the end of the day, if you're continuing to work the problem you're doing with a smile on your face and satisfaction of doing a good job and making the customer happy, I mean. The rest of it is it's pretty straightforward. Now, so that said, that's what I bring from my experience, and then being able to then set the culture with others to do that, because I'm a manager. This is a team effort here, and being able to bring everyone together, their creativity, and set the culture in an environment, because obviously we're working, almost a week and a half. Of regular labor, right? 55 hours, and that's sort of the expectation for the entire team. So you really got to be passionate about what you do and have purpose. And so being able to bring that purpose, doing it in a detailed, organized fashion, be able to work fast and work effectively, and enjoy it, right? Because 11 hours a day at the office is a long time.
Oh yes.
Family, no family, single, and so there's going to be that truly is your work family here. So very much a lot of that's interrelated. In that, into being detail oriented, showing up on time, and handling a deadline. Because really, if you're doing a lot of work along the way, there's not a whole lot of deadlines.
Yes.
Because you've got your work organized, and there's the unexpected, absolutely. But I'll also say that there's throughout that, again, oversees deployments and timelines and headquarters work, working for CEO, president level equivalents in the past. That it's something I'm familiar with. So the Friday afternoon thing that you've got to have by Saturday morning, and being able to not only do that, have the knowledge and ability to accomplish it, but also to do it with some level of enjoyment. In the service they talk about embracing the suck. I mean, some things it's not fun, but you've got to find enjoyment in doing it because the job has to get done, and you want the best that you can bring for yourself and for your team.
Yes, well, sounds like you really, understand that, and it's very nice to, meet with someone who understands that. So, as you mentioned, you are spending a lot of time with the team, and your director that is above you, and, some of the executive people you will spend some time with as well. So there can cause conflict, and there can cause, a bit of difficulty within your colleagues. And I would just like to know, how do you deal with conflict, and how do you resolve that, considering you need to work with these people, and, we need to make sure our company is running smoothly?
Yeah, very much head on. The best way to do it is to at the lowest level possible for the parties involved to hopefully communicate. If that's not the case, obviously you elevate it. So, for example, if it were two folks on my team, they're not able to resolve it, maybe I can come in and be the intermediary. If that's not possible, from the information package you gave, I know the company has some conflict resolution things as well. And so really you're just kind of stepping through that process. Because again, at the end of the day, you want this resolved, right? Not only for everyone's well-being, but in the back of your head, you're worried about active shooters, some of those disgruntled employee kind of situations as well, and then also maybe there is an underlying issue. You're going through a divorce, you have financial issues, all those kind of things. So there's an employee well-being piece of that as well. And so starting at the bottom, in the most minimal of circumstance between two people, I think is the most important. Because it's not a comfortable situation for the person, the people on either side. The person who is of concern, who has been offended, or the receiver of that. And so you have to be very careful to understand who you're dealing with, and how as you move through that process.
That's great. So, given your answer, I really like that answer. So I feel like it would be great to go ahead and mention that in this position, as manager, we do have an in-house counselor that we like to, if there's ever an issue, we would like, if you were hired, to know that is an option. If you feel like your team or members of your team or you with someone in the company needs to go there, it would be easier to work that out. So that is something we really love to have, especially even for more personal issues. Maybe that's not with a colleague. So now that we're getting towards the end of this interview, I would just like, any final remarks that you feel makes you stand out and makes you the best option for this job.
Yeah. So really, I think, there's a lot on the resume. I know you've seen through that. I touched on a bit of the philosophy for me as a professional as it relates to my background and my experience as well. So, I'm really excited about it. I'm happy to work long hours for little pay. I've done that for the military. And everything, so that's really an exciting situation there. But anyways, no. Really, what your company's all about, really, to me, is something exciting, and I'm interested to be a part of in that. And as I mentioned, right, spend a lot of time in the military and then in government service. This is a little bit going a little bit different direction, and so there's passion from that standpoint for me. So in many respects, it's not necessarily about the compensation as much as it is the opportunity for personal and professional growth there. So, just seeing that dynamic that you guys offer is very appealing to me. So I just want to share that with you.
I really love that. So I just kind of want to almost do a little review. So, you are very qualified with 2 master's degrees and a bachelor's. You really, are very intelligent, especially with your service, the way that you've handled a lot of complex situations, seem very prepared for a position like this. And I do want to reiterate that, your qualifications will definitely represent your pay. I know I did give you an in-between, but as I did also state, you know, we do have a lot of room for improvement, and you sound like you excel pretty quickly. So if you were to be hired, you know, that's definitely something that you could come to the administration about as far as salary is concerned. But you know, you really gave a great interview today, and thank you for your service.
Yeah.
So it was lovely meeting
Awesome.
with you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the
Yes.
time. Have a great day.
You too. Bye. Oh my God. Did
Stop.
it?